Hi, I'm Simon Wellman and I will be introducing you to cameras. Now, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some of the cameras that we're working with. Now, this is a DSLR, a standard digital camera, which you can use for video. There is the standard camcorder. Everything's built in. And here is your everyday tablet. It can also be used for filming, the same as any smartphone. Now, what we're going to do is have a closer look at how to set each one of these cameras up. There are three main things we're going to be looking at when it comes to using video. First one is white balance, telling the camera what is white so all the colors reproduce correctly. The second one is exposure, so that we can see the footage that you're looking at. And the third is focus, so that it's clear. So we're going to have a look at how to set up each camera individually that way. So the first thing I'm going to do is have a look at the DSLR. Here we are with the DSLR. As with the iPad and the camcorder, we'll be testing the features, and what we'll be looking at was white balance, exposure and focus. So first of all, we will look at white balance. Problems with the DSLR is there are lots of little buttons to press, so you need to find out where they are. In this particular camera, press this Q button, which comes up with a lot of information, and we have to go through them to find out what we're looking for. At the moment, we're looking at auto white balance, which is the AWB. Pressing it, and you now have a whole line of white balance settings. So we'll go across. There is outside, shady outside, cloudy day, artificial lighting, strip lighting, flash, and then white balance. This is where you can set the white balance yourself. Now, sometimes you might think, let's go through to daylight. Now, it just happens that the lights that we're using here are daylight balanced, so Rob looks reasonably good, as we can see. That's the one way of doing it. The other way, if you want to get exact color matches, is to once more go into menu, and you go over to what looks like a stamp. Now, if you click on that, it says custom. So we need to go in and tell it to use the custom. Now, for a camera to know what white is, it must have some white. So Rob, could you place that white piece of paper up? A little higher, that's it, fine. So, and a little bit over to your left. That's it, perfect, thank you. So, what we need to do is take a picture. So, on the camera, you hit the shutter button and take a picture of the white paper. Thank you, Rob. Now, when you go into, you're already in the custom setup, which is the stamp, you go into the menu over here, another control, you need to now go through to find your white balance setup. As you can see, it goes custom white balance. So we say set, we want that. It says this is the only compatible image. It is the image we want because it's all white. And if you see up there, the stamp tool, which is the white balance tool, is next to the word set, which means you press the set button, we set the white balance, it asks us if we want to do it, and we go OK. Now when we go out of the menu, we're back into Rob, and as you can see, it's changed the tones of the colours slightly so that they're much more appealing. Okay, so now we've got the colour balance. Now we need to look at exposure. Exposure is the amount of light coming into the camera to make an image. If there's too little light, Rob would be very dark. If there's too much light, he'll be overexposed and there'll be too much light. Now I'll demonstrate this. At the bottom here, it tells us two things. One, over here, is our shutter speed. Now with video, you have to have that set on 50. So at the top of here, and in most cameras, there's a dial. As you dial it, you see the number going up. So we make sure it goes up to 50. Next to it is another number. This is 5.6. Now this is telling us how much light is coming into the camera. To do that one, we have to press another button. In this camera in particular, it's an AV button. Then use the same dial, and you can make him darker, or you can make him lighter. Okay. There is one more thing on this camera. It's a button at the top here called ISO. Now what that means is the sensitivity of your camera. Now on most cameras they're set to auto, so what we need to do is check the menu. Movie exposure is set for manual. That's good, because if we click on it you can see it can also be auto. There's usually a button on the top. You press it and it comes up with a lot of different numbers. Smaller the number, the less sensitive the camera is. The higher numbers, the more sensitive. Unfortunately, the higher the numbers, the more noise you get, which is a distortion in the image. So what we'll do is we'll press again and we'll go along and we'll choose our level. Let's go to 800, which is a standard setting, and say OK. So as you can see, Rob is a little dim. As you can see, the 50, which is our shutter speed, and the 4.5, which is our aperture. So pressing the button down and we move around and make it Rob darker and lighter as we did before. So we set it to see whether Rob looks roughly okay. There. Now that is how to set your exposure. There are multiple ways to measure the exposure, but for that you need to alter the firmware on the camera, which is not advised. Now, the last thing we need to do is to focus the camera. Now, first of all, you need to make sure that you're aimed at Rob properly. You must zoom in to whatever size you want Rob to be in the image. Let's go for about here. And from there, you can focus on him. Unfortunately, once you focus, you can't change your zoom in or out, because then you would have to refocus. So all you can do is press one of these buttons at the top, which will electronically amplify Rob. So you can see he's quite out of focus. And then we'll focus him in using the focus ring on the front of the lens until he's nice and sharp. Once we press the button again, we go back. Now we know Rob is perfectly sharp at that point where he is sitting. If he were to move forward or back, that will alter the focus points and he may not be as sharp. The next camera will be the camcorder. So let's have a closer look at this one as well. Now the camcorder is designed specifically for these kind of jobs. So we're going to look at the same things, which are white balance, our exposure and our focus. Okay, to white balance, most of them have a single button that you press, which is either in the screen or on the body of the camera. Now this one is on the body of the camera. So I will show you roughly where it is. On this model, it's that button at the front. But as I said, it can also be in a menu. So Rob, would you mind putting up the white piece of paper? So the white piece comes up, and all we do is press the button. It says it's checking the white balance and everything's okay. Thank you, Rob. You can put it down now. Now Rob has been corrected to the correct colours.
I've been corrected.
And as you can see, he's slightly overexposed, which is the next thing we're going to do. Now, on this button, we have a button over here, which we set for manual, but it can also be set for auto. And at the back, there's a little button that says iris, which is our aperture. in this case it's over here. We press it, and on the screen a number pops up which is f2.2. Those numbers with an F start means how much light is coming into the camera. So we have a little switch to the back here which we will then go up and down to bring in different levels of light. Now as you see also, a little number here, 9, that's called gain. That's basically like ISO, it's amplifying the signal to make the light levels higher. So what we'll do is turn that off for the moment. So we go to the low level. As you can see, it goes dark. And what we'll then do is we will bring up the light levels. And there is Rob on his face. All right. Now, the next thing is focus. What we can do is use a zoom control, zoom straight into Rob. Let's just focus on his face properly. There he is. And in this case, we have an assist button up here. When we press it, things go black and white. There we are. Until it's sharp. And you see how the lines go red? That's called peaking. And what it is showing where things are in focus. So we know now where those red lines are, that's more likely to be in focus. Press it off, and we look in color, and it is in focus. And then we zoom out again, and the focus stays exactly the same, unlike the DSLR, where you have to refocus. This means that you can zoom in, focus, and zoom out, and that any zooming in and out will stay exactly focused, which gives you more options to change the size of the picture during an interview. So there are the 3 elements, and as you can see, really quick to do because it is a professional level camera, but in the consumer end. And finally, let's have a look at the tablet. First of all, let's turn on the iPad. Now, Rob, could you move around a little bit? And then stop about now. This is a box that went round Rob, and basically it's set for facial recognition, like most tablets or phones. Now, within that square, it works out the white balance, so it's guessing what white is and working out the colors. It's also working out the exposure based on what it can see, and it's focusing inside that box. So unless you purchase an app, which may only work with more modern tablets and phones, you have no control of the image, and you are reliant on how it records that image. And of course, the other thing is, tablets have an attachment so they can go onto a tripod, but they're not always secure. They can be banged around. And you see how the image is changing because the camera has been moved. We've had a look at each of the cameras. Now it's time to make an evaluation of them. First, let's look at the iPad or any other generic tablet or mobile phone. In a pinch, they are usable, though the image quality isn't the highest, and it's a bit more complicated to try and get the audio. I would say this is the bottom level for when you're using it for the interviews. Second, the DSLR. It's a lot better image-wise. It still has problems with audio, and you will need to do the same kind of workaround, but it does produce some surprisingly good images. Finally, the camcorder. The camcorder is built to do exactly the kind of jobs you are doing now. They record good images, they're easy to set up, and they have built-in audio, so you don't have to use any other pieces of equipment.